And brothers and sisters, somebody said, well, Pastor Drumwright, I hear you talking all that good talk. That sounds real good. But how is it possible to rid myself? I'm glad you want to know today. Because the first thing is, and all the points are listed because I don't want anybody to miss what we're saying today. Look deep within, examine your heart, and tell yourself the ugly truth. Look at your own heart. As I looked at mine, as the Word of God was challenging me, brothers and sisters, sometimes there's some stuff in our heart. It is some junk. It is some clunky junk in our heart. And we're carrying it. And the very thing that we won't tell ourselves the truth about, if we would confront the truth, it would help us to start our point journey towards breakthrough and liberation. But see, let me tell you something. You got to have a desire to get rid of the junk. Because let me tell you something, I don't care, don't let anybody tell you this lie. God does not force himself on anybody. God does not force any of us to do anything. In our belief system, we teach the doctrine of free will, that there is God's way and there is the other system, and it's on you. You have free will to either choose God's way or the other way. That's one of the teachings about being Baptist, for those who wanted to know. We believe in the doctrine of free will. God doesn't force you to do anything. You have to have a desire, but that also means you have to embrace the need to transform. I don't know about anybody else. I do not want to get up here and preach next September 2016, should the Lord tarry his coming, and have to tell you that I'm still at the same place I was this year as I was last year. I hope somebody in here can see yourself in the next turn of life and understand the need for transformation. Young person, you're going back to school, you're in the new school year. I hope you see yourself as a different student this year than you did last year. And sometimes it means you got to get you a new set of playmates, because some of the playmates you had last year were the ones that kept you from getting what you were trying to get. But somebody ought to see the need. Somebody ought to want their thoughts to be different. Somebody ought to want their surroundings to be different. But you have to embrace the need to transform. See, that's when you stop coming to church every Sunday just because it's on your checklist. You start coming to worship, Bible study, knowing that the Word of God can transform you. I took opportunity to listen to my favorite sermon, Down But Not Out. Someone had posted it on one of their YouTube channels. And as I listened to the bishop preach, that sermon is an old sermon from the early 90s. But as I listened to him preach, something called hold to me, because there are times in this life where you have to hear a familiar word that will plant something new in you and give you a new burst towards transformation. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Sometimes when you hear a familiar word, even from the text, it lets you know that the God who gave you that word back then has a way of breathing on it again in this season of your life and will present to you what you need. But you have to embrace the need to transform. But also, let me tell you something. This is where many of us fail. You have to commit to do the work. Tell your pew buddy, you have to do the work. And tell your other pew buddy, you have to do the work. See, let me tell you something. If you're going to succeed, whatever situation you may be in life, there is some work that is required. Even in the Holy Book, there are some situations where Jesus, or the Word of God in the New Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, will say, I'll do such and such if you do such and such. If my people. That's a condition. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from his. If you do these four things right here, then I will do such and such. But some of us, we don't want to do the work. And let me tell you something. Stop listening to the outside voices who want you to stay stuck where you are. Let me tell you why some of them want you to stay stuck where you are. Because if you decide to do the work that God told you to do, if you begin to make a turnaround, either they'll be forced to do something different with their life, or you might just have to leave them behind so you can go. How many folk know what I'm talking about? There's some folk who don't want you to do any better because they don't want the challenge of having to do something different. And don't you let yourself get stuck for 2 more years by dead folks who don't want to go nowhere, who don't want anything more out of their life, and they don't want you to want anything more. You better tell them, the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one from another. And if they don't like it, you just let the Lord handle that, because God can handle them better than you can.